Hello again, and welcome to Learn Python the Hard Way, exercise 39. This exercise is not difficult, but I run into several people who have an issue with the difference between lists and dictionaries, which is sort of strange as a programmer because they serve two totally different purposes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, let me get this example, okay? I'm just going to copy and paste this example so we can work with it. And we're going to talk about dictionaries. Okay. And let me just pop that in there. Oh, that's right. My copy and paste skills again. All right. Still. All right, I'm just going to make a dictionary. No, I really want to use that exercise. Give me a second. There we go. Okay. That should show you that even as a professional programmer, everyone has problems with computers from time to time. Okay, so this is a dictionary. And the thing that people run into when they try to use a dictionary is they don't understand or they have a problem with referential data, okay? So referential data is where one piece of data is accessed with some sort of reference, okay? Some number, some ID, some name. Now, you've been creating variables, x equals 1, y equals 2, j equals x plus y. This is referential data. The variables that are being created within Python, and you can reference them by the name. Instead of typing 1, I can type x. Instead of typing 2, I can type y. And instead of typing 1 plus 2 all the time, I can just type j. I can use the reference j to talk about those numbers or to refer to them. This gives me power. I can write a script where I can print j, and then at the later time I can change the numbers for x and for y. And when my code runs again, calculating this, I don't have to hunt down every place I've used the number 3 and 4. It will just change for me because I changed it in the one place I defined it, the one place I create the reference. Now, a dictionary is sort of the same as the variables that you're using in Python. If I have stuff up there, right, and I do name, all right, I'm using the single quote name, this string right here, right? I'm using that as a reference to the data Z. If I use stuff age, I'm using that as a reference to the data 39. I'm now 42, so that's a little different. And if I use the word height, that string height, I'm using it as another reference. I'm referencing into stuff. In a way, it's like stuff is a mini Python. It's like I did this. And then I did this. And then I did this. Oh, 74. So all stuff is it's a mini Python. Now we're going to get into this later on because I use dictionaries to chain off into how object-oriented programming works. Do you remember when we could do this? We could do name dot, we could do that. Do you remember when we could do, if I created a list, let's say I'm going to make a list called P, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I could do P dot append 7. Remember I could do that? See that P dot? Okay, the dot is similar to this syntax in the dictionary. Stuff height is similar to if I could do stuff.height. Okay, it's just that it's kind of arbitrarily decided you have to use this syntax, but the concept is the same. The concept of accessing data inside something by a reference. In the case of the one above it, dot append, the word append is a reference to a particular function I want to run that is inside P. Height is a reference to a piece of data inside stuff that I want to access. And name out here in Python is a reference to another piece of data I want to access. So when do you use a list? When you have to refer to a piece of data by another piece of data, when you reference the piece of data. If the data is a list of things, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, then you use a list because you don't really need to refer to it by anything other than the number, its index. And the order is important. If you have to have 2 before 3, that's a list. But if you have to refer to pieces of data using things people enter in, like in this case, someone enters in, give me the stuff for Z, give me the height or the name of this person, it's Z, and give me their age, okay, then you use a dictionary. All right, so now with that done, let's go ahead and run this exercise just so you can see it. 39 actually. Okay, nothing big. And then let's go look at the code real quick. You can see a dictionary is created by using these braces, okay, curly braces. And then you have the reference data, the key is the other word for that. It's a key. And then you have a colon, and then you have the data it refers to. That's the value, okay? So we do the same thing here. We are mapping, we are creating a reference from California, or the CA as the key, to San Francisco as a city, okay? And then Detroit for Michigan, right? The value is Detroit, and the key, the reference, is Michigan. And the same with Florida, okay? Now, what we can do is we can use this reference to tell Python to add a new thing. So this here, this line of code is like doing this. Okay. This line of code is just using the reference system, the ability to index into to reference into it, to use a key in that dictionary to set a new value. All right. And same with this. And now we just go through all these and we print out information using the reference. So you see at the end, I'm using the reference Michigan, right? The key Michigan to get the states. And then using the reference Florida, the key Florida to get that state. And then I can do it double. I can get the value from Michigan, right? And pass that to cities, right? To get the city. Now, what would you do to debug this? Let's say you're doing this wrong. Well, first thing I would do is I would say do city equals states Michigan, right? Anytime you see this kind of nesting, if you can't understand it, print it out. Print. Something like that might work. Now when you run it, you can put this in here and do city, and then you can see what that's getting. So that would be a way to debug, to find out what's going on. As I've said repeatedly throughout this course, if you cannot tell what is going on, and most of the time you can't, by looking at the code, print it out. So if you don't know what's happening when you see cities and states, print this out. And the next thing we do is we would like to go through all of the states, okay? Everything that's in this dictionary. We want to go through each key and value, key and value, key and value. So what we do is we use this function. We do states.items, okay? That's similar to, on a list, you call .append. So state.items, and we do lists so that it's a little easier to work with. And then we go for each state comma abbreviation. So what's going on here? Well, let's go work with this line right here. This is why I wrote it like this. So you can copy it. Okay. We're going to go into Python, and let me just pop up here. I'm going to get this first. Let's play around with this. And again, nothing prevents you from doing this too. So let me get this one more time. This is so terrible. I have no idea why this keeps failing. Edit, copy, edit, paste. There we go. Okay. So states gets printed out. All right, so we have our states. Now let's pop back down here, and we're going to do states.items. Now you're going to see that's going to give like a dict items kind of thing. What we're going to do is we're going to go list states.items so we can see it a little better. Okay, now what is this? Well, we have this, and then inside that is each of these things. Those are in parentheses, right? Okay, so if I do this, let's just go here. And let's go items equals that, okay? So once we have those items, we can go items 0, and that tells us what the first one is. It's this kind of brace thing. That's a kind of list called a tuple. It works exactly like a list. And what it's doing is it's taking each key and value, putting it into a list and letting me go through it. It lets me walk through it. So if I do for x comma y in list states items, oops, and I need my colon, and then I go to print x comma y, I get each key and value. Now, why does the x comma y work? Well, if the list is returning, if items 0, the first element is 2 things. Remember when we were able to do script user and name equals argv? That's exploding all the things on the right into the variables on the left. So if I did x comma y equals items 0, it's exploding those organ and or into x and y, x, y. Now if I do x comma y equals 1, y and x, and then 2, now we do x, y, and 3, x, y. You see what's happening is it's giving you back the key value as like a little list called a tuple, and then that is being assigned to each variable in the for loop. Just so you can see the for loop one more time. There you go. Okay, so how does this work in here? That's your job. Go back here and print this out. Print every possible thing you can. In fact, try doing this. Try doing this. Change this to I, and then do print right, and then do state comma abrev equals I. Try something like that. You're going to figure it out by printing these variables out. Okay. Then we do the exact same thing there, and we do it one more time there, and then we come to a new thing. So if I try to get something out of a list, out of a dictionary that doesn't exist, let's say I'm going to do Oregon exists, right? But let's say I'm going to do oregano on accident. I get a key error. Okay, the key error is useful because a lot of times when you access a dict, you don't want that. But what if I want to return none? I want to check if it's in there, or I don't want to have an error. I just want to know if it's in there or not. If it is, give it to me. If not, do none. Then that's what get is going to do for you. So oregano is now going to give me none. If I print this out, print repr. Okay. So that's very useful. And you can also give it a second parameter. If I do this, let me roll up to this one instead. I can go, yeah, oops, type it correctly. And if oregano doesn't exist as a key in states, I will get yeah back. If oregano does exist, I could say like this. I could go, okay, oregano doesn't exist. Okay, cool. States.oregano, right? Because we can set a key equals hello. And now I get hello because oregano exists. So that's what the get is for. And then if I don't get a state because I did get, right, I can say no Texas. And then here's that other version where I can do get Texas and I have a default if it does not exist. Okay, so that's a quick rundown of additional things you can do with dictionaries. Go through this exercise. It's key to type in all the code and try to break it. The things for remembering on breaking this are you have new syntax now. You can totally break the syntax on this. A classic is to forget a comma, right? So let's try that. Let's forget a comma. Let's see. Yeah, see? Invalid syntax. So if you see that, most likely you forgot a comma somewhere. That's how that works. And what are some other ones? Yep, accessing the lists wrong. That should be another thing. The other one is, let's try this. Let's go here. And then, let me see. I do Python. And let me scroll back just to make this a little easier. It gives me my states back. Okay, so watch this. For x comma y in states.items, print x comma y. Okay, so that works. So what's the advantage of using list on states.items? Something to research. It's actually slower, but in some cases you want to do that for debugging purposes, because you're going to have to figure out what's in this list. Whereas when you just use .items, it's kind of a little different, okay? So research that. Like, what if you get an error that looks like that, right? And you want to change it. This is actually a pretty useful printout, but it can be better. All right, so that's that. Make sure you go through this, try to break it, do the debugging. Like I said, a key place to do the debugging is here, so you can understand what this list of the state items is doing. And then just go on to the next exercise.